See if you got it on.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see
it's
the
going.
light up.
Yeah. Let's see. Today's January 10th, 1984. This is Joe Todd, an interview with Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Marion Hampton. Mr. Hampton, where were you born?
Hardinsburg, Kentucky.
And when's your birthday?
It's
8th of
August 8th.
He even forgets his birthday sometimes.
And what year?
1894.
1894. Ma'am, what's your full name?
Mary, you mean my first name, or the boy's married?
Yes, ma'am.
Mary Agnes Grodman.
And when's your birthday?
January the 18th, next week,
What year?
1903.
1903. Sir, who's your father?
John R. Hampton,
Where's he from?
Hardinsburg, Kentucky.
And who is your mother?
Sreeni
Whitfield.
S-E-R-E-N-E.
S-E-R-E-N-E. Whitfield.
W-H-I-T-F-I-L-L.
Was she from Kentucky also?
Yeah,
What kind of work did your father do?
he was a farmer.
How long did you live in Kentucky?
Well, father and mother were both raised there, but we moved to Oklahoma when I was 7 years old.
About 1901.
1901. Mm-hmm.
How come you came to Oklahoma?
Oh, I don't know. There was a neighbor out there, and he insisted we could do a lot better here than we was there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't have much of a farm there in Kentucky, and so we come out here as farmers.
Do you know what kind of chores you did on the farm in Kentucky?
I know I was pretty small. I know we raised most tobacco. And I was big enough to go down the tobacco row and pull the worms off and pull the heads off. That's all I did.
How'd you come to Oklahoma?
On the train,
On the train? And what city did you come to? What area?
Caddo County.
Caddo County. Okay, was that in the opening? Was Caddo County in the Great Lottery? 1901?
Well, I don't much believe it was. I think the opening back in them days they called Old Oklahoma or something.
And that was the run of 89. Then in 1901 they had the run of 89 and 93. And in 1901 they had a lottery.
It become statehood
Yeah.
right after we was out here. I know that.
Do you remember Statehood Day?
No, I don't.
They moved to New Mexico for a while. I'm not sure how long they lived in Oklahoma before they moved to New Mexico.
We lived here 6 years. And then we went to New Mexico for 3 years.
How come you moved to New Mexico?
Well, you could homestead out there. We moved out there and lived there 3 years, but it was just too dry for farming.
Want
Yeah.
to get rich.
So we moved back to Apache, the place we had left.
What part of New Mexico did you move to?
Well, I don't know. I know we was on those, what they call 66 now. And
You said it goes through Albuquerque and Gallup and...
no, we went through Albuquerque and Montoya and Newkirk. That's where we lived. In Cuervo. We was about halfway between Montoya and Cuervo.
Okay.
Don't have any cookies or anything to offer you today.
What about
It's okay.
the farm in Caddo County? What kind of crops did you raise down there?
Mostly cotton. Well, we had corn, wheat, broom corn, cotton. But cotton was the main crop.
Tell me about chopping cotton.
Well, it's just very simple. We had what they called a go devil, and you go through there with the go devil and leave a strip about that wide.
What, about 6 inches?
Yeah. And then you took the hole and cut all the weeds and pinned the cotton with that hole.
Now, is the Go Devil pulled by a horse?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was all horses back in them days.
How much cotton could you pick in a day?
Well, when us kids got up any size tall, we'd run around 300 pounds a day. Wow.
How much could you snap?
Huh?
How much could you snap? Or did you snap bowls?
Well, you first picked all the cotton you
Mhm.
could, and then when the frost would hit it, the bowls would partly open. They wouldn't open enough for you to pick it. You go through there and pull all them off. Took them to the cotton gin. Too.
How much could you snap then, the bowls?
Oh, you could snap 400 or 500 a day
Mhm.
a bowl.
Where was the gin in Caddo County?
It was, well, there was a gin in almost every town out there. I know there was 2 there in Apache.
You know who ran them? Who the
No, I
managers?
don't. I don't remember.
Mhm. Do you have any memories at all of the Spanish-American War?
No. Not any.
Okay. Were you drafted or did you enlist in the
Well,
military?
I was in the draft, so I just enlisted for the duration of the war.
And where were you living at that time?
I was living here in Tulsa,
Here in Tulsa?
yeah. But it just so happened I went down home on a vacation, and come registration time, so I just registered while I was down there. And so I come on back up here and went to work. I was working for an oil company, and I got a notice to be ready to go in 24 hours, so I went back down there. They never did call me. I waited and waited. And so I finally went to see him. Had to go to Andarko. And they, well, we don't know when you're going to call you. Well, listen, I was down. Had a job up there. Was working. And they, well, you go on back and go to work. Said, we'll give you plenty of time to get here. Come back up here and I wasn't here much over 2 weeks. Got a call, be ready to go in 12 hours.
That clock, and you set it back.
No, it's right.
Oh, but he thinks the ticking.
When did you move to Tulsa?
Well, it was after I come back from the war.
You mean before the war, right?
You said you were living here when you went down to register?
Yeah. I come up here in about 1915, I think
Mhm.
it was.
How come you came up here?
Well, I was working on a cow ranch down there, getting $1 a day of my kids back in the mountain. And I had a sister that married a Hardesty, and a lot of his folks lived up here, and so they come to Tulsa. And she kept writing me letters to come up here and go to work. I'd make more up here. I was getting $1 a day down here, and I come up here and went to work. I was getting $3 a day. So I just stayed up here. Never did go back down there. That cow ranching wasn't no fun anyhow.
Where did you go through basic training?
At San Francisco.
San Francisco?
Mhm.
Presidio? Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you I've heard that some of the soldiers helped clean up after the earthquake out there.
Well, that was long before the war, though.
Okay, I heard 1916 they were still cleaning up.
I met a lot of people there.
Yeah.
I got acquainted with them that was there during the earthquake.
Oh.
In fact, I had a girl there I went to see pretty often. Her dad thought a soldier was the worst person in the world because he saw a soldier shoot a man because he's trying to catch a chicken. And this chicken run through a barbed wire fence, and this man started through the fence to go after it, and the soldier killed him while he's getting through the fence. And so I told him, I said that soldier's orders was to allow no one to go through that fence. He said, when you're on guard and a soldier, you carry them orders out or die trying. Now I said, that's exactly what happened. He wasn't supposed to go through that fence for a chicken or anything else. I said, that soldier had to kill him. And there's a lot of such as that went on.
Do you remember any stories about the earthquake that people told you?
Well, not many. I heard one man say that during that time, the reason they stopped people from coming in there, they had just people laid out in long rows of dead people. And said people go along there like they're looking for some of their kin or something. They'd see a diamond ring on somebody's finger. Said they'd even chew their finger off to get that ring. Things like that went on doing that.
How long was basic?
Huh?
How long was basic training?
Well, I got there sometime in April. And we left there the last of August. Went to New York. And we sailed for France first day of September.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that long time.
Can you describe basic training? What was it like?
Well, the bugle sounded regularly at 5 o'clock in the morning. And you had 15 minutes to get up and get your uniform on, your leggings, every button on your uniform buttoned, and out in the line with your rifle. You had that to do in 15 minutes. And then the next move we made, we took exercises, and that lasted, I think, for 30 minutes. And then we run 3 or 4 miles. And then we drill 8 hours a day. It was rough.
What'd your drill consist of?
Well, mostly just foot moving, handling the rifle for a long time. But we finally did get on rifle range over across the bay. We had very little training on guns. But the outfit I was in, there was a lot of old artillerymen in there that had been in the Army for 10, 12 years. And they knowed the guns. Now, we was called artillerymen. We could fire them guns all right. These guys that was real artillerymen, they'd tell you how to set that gun, and all you had to do is just turn the wheel till you got the number they told you to set it on. We could do that all right. But a real artilleryman, he goes to school like a college of some kind for 4 years. So that's the difference in us. And they was called gunners, you see. And just like the artilleryman, he could be right here. You could give him the altitude and range and different things, maybe up in Nebraska, anywhere. He could tell you exactly where's that out just by looking at the map of the world. They're really smart people, real artillerymen.
What were your barracks like in basic?
Well, they was reasonable, good enough. They wasn't bad there, but after we left there, we never had barracks anymore.
You didn't.
No. When we got to New York, we went out to Camp Miehl, and we had squad tents. And from there on, we never had barracks. The way the thing happened, there was 3 artillery companies, 360 men each battery, and truck companies. I think they had 200 men in each battery or something like that. Well, just before we left San Francisco, I was in Battery C, and we had a case of typhoid fever to break out. And they quarantined us in for 30 days. And A and B and 3 of the truck companies, I don't know what they were. I think they went by numbers too.
Mm-hmm.
They all went on to New York. And when we got out, we went to New York. They had done already went across. And so we was only there just a few days. So we went across
Where'd you leave from?
from New York.
From New York.
And
What ship did you go over on?
I went over on an old English ship called Antithesis. And that was his last trip.
It was.
We landed in Liverpool, England.
Tell me about the trip.
Well, it was seed rough. I was seasick about all the time. It was 13 days on that thing, and the food was awful. Wasn't hardly fit to eat.
What kind of food you have?
I don't know. Stuff I'd never eaten before in all my life. And
How many men were on the ship?
well, there was about half niggers and half whites. There's 360 artillerymen, and then there's 3 truck companies. Every how many? 2 truck companies. Every how many they was in. And we occupied the top part of the ship, and there's about that many niggers down below.
Mm-hmm.
We almost had a race riot right there on the ship. Boy, that was a shade rough. We went up around Greenland, and the water got awful rough up there. The old ship just rocked and rolled. And when we left New York, there was 15 ships and a battleship besides. That battleship led the way. And then somewhere along the line, another ship had got lost in its convoy, and it joined us. Made 16 ships in the battleship.
Have any trouble with U-boats?
No, we didn't have any trouble at all. There's one day, we saw a German submarine. But we didn't only just see him. He never did even get in gunshot of him. Every ship carried a 4-inch gun and had sailors on there to operate them. But this battleship, it had some big guns on it. I don't know how big they was, but I could see they looked like...
What battleship was it?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So you landed in Liverpool after 13 days.
Yeah.
What'd you do in England?
Well, every day we was there, they took us out for a walk. Showed us the different things in the country around there. And I don't remember much of them, but I had heard of the Earl of Derby. I don't know, somewhere or another I had read about it or something. They took us out over his estate. The story was told when when he was just a little baby. The eagle carried him off. He was gone 4 months. And they found him in that eagle's nest with 4 baby eagles, and he's just as healthy as could be. Now that's a story they told us there. And the king of England made him an earl and give him a lot of land, but a lot of it was swamp land, but it had all been filled in and was the nicest farmland you ever saw. Every fence post had an eagle on it. Every house had an eagle at each end of it. And where that eagle's nest was, there was a house there with the eagle nest on top of it, and 4 baby eagles and 1 baby in it. And there's just things like that all over England to see, but I don't remember any of them mounting anything on that. And I remember one place we was where they had a kind of a rock arch built of a thing up over the highway, and one woman claimed that she held off 300 soldiers there one time in there shooting them. There's a place up on top, high wall, but there's holes through it where they shoot out of it.
Where did you stay in Liverpool?
Well, we just lived in squad tent.
The squad tents?
Yeah.
Did you live in the town itself or outside of the town?
We lived right in the town,
Mm-hmm.
part of town.
Is that where it rained real hard?
Well, we had rain there, but when we left there and went to Southampton, that was really rough. No, it was Hampton, town of Hampton, right on the English Channel. We had our breakfast there at Liverpool, and was all day on the train. We got off at Hampton. I never saw such rain all my life. We walked about 4 miles out to a camp that they call West Hampton. Supposed to be squad tents out there first. We got out there and the tents wasn't even up, laying there in water. We had to put them up to sleep in. Time we got them up, it was just a oblolly of mud all around them. Such as that was a shade rough. And then they told us to go up there to a place and get our supper. We went up there and there was a lot of French soldiers there. They gave us 1 slice of bread and 1 little square of butter down each square. That was our supper. We didn't have any dinner. So the next morning, we didn't have no way to cook. We didn't have nothing there. And they finally got some canned tomatoes about 10 o'clock. We had the hardtacks cooked in tomatoes. And that's what we had that day. We left there that evening, went back to Hampton. At dark, we got on the boat, crossed the English Channel, got off our town. I believe the name of it was Harve. But we just got off of it and they brought in a troop train of wounded soldiers. That was the first thing we done, was unload them soldiers. Put 4 in each coach, and they had them built where there'd be a stretcher here and another in here and another here. There's 4 high. And we carried men off of there. You couldn't tell whether they're dead or alive. Some of them looked like they're dead. Some without legs, some without arms. That's pretty rough on an old boy like me that never had to do such as that. There was a nice ship sitting out in the waters big red cross sign on it. Them soldiers was all coming home. Give you a kind of funny feeling. You felt like, well, it's over for them, and I've still got to take it yet. No telling what'll happen to me. Well, we left there that after we got that train unloaded, and we walked all that day. Long about 3 o'clock that evening, we got into a camp. It looked like it had been built for a cavalry camp. It looked like all horse barns in there. And they had the flu in there. And there was a big long rock barn there, and they had 4 rows of stretchers in there. And all the way down through there. I don't believe there was a minute went by that they wasn't carrying a soldier out of there dead. Sometime bring them out 2 at a time. And
You want some more coffee?
That's fine. Thank you.
Hey,
we stayed there. We didn't know what the flu was. I know I didn't. I didn't know it was contagious. I even went down there to the door of that building and looked in, see what they's doing in there. There's nurses and doctors in there working. There was a nurse standing there in the door. She was crying just as hard as she could cry. I don't know. I guess she had probably just took all she could. And so the next morning, we started to leave at 3 o'clock. And we hadn't had nothing to eat since the day before. We had tomatoes and hardtacks. That day we didn't have a bite to eat all day. We left there at 3 o'clock because there's about half of the outfit already out. And they come down there to the quartet to let nobody out. But they did let the rest of us go on out because part of us was already out. We walked all that day, full packed, beside your rifle, 62 pounds on your back, and then your army rifle. And we got into a town that night. Well, it was about sundown when we got there. And they gave us one big dipper of some kind of beef stew and 2 biscuits. It wasn't enough, but it was sure big help. But a fellow as hungry as he was could eat 3 times that much.
Mm-hmm.
But it stayed rough. And we slept in barns. We was there 3 days. And they found out where A and B was on the battlefront. So they bunched us up, sent us back up there.
What's A and B?
A and B artillery
Okay.
batteries.
Okay. What unit were you in?
Huh?
What unit were you with? What artillery unit?
Well, it was called the Park Artillery. That's the name they give it. Well, we got up that town. We stayed on that train till the Germans went shooting at it. Sit in there and just see a shell burst here, one over here, and one over here. Engineer stopped, throwed that train in reverse. He's getting us out of there. Now, I mean, he's getting us out. Took us back to a town called Epicourt. And they had some 10 buildings there, just one side and 2 ends. Front of them was open. What we slept in. And we stayed there 2 weeks. Trained 8 hours every day, putting our gas mask on, taking it off. Take it off, put it back in the sack, pull your sack up, take it out, put it back on. You had to do that in 4 seconds. We practiced that 8 hours a day for 2 weeks. Well, that was kind of old, I tell you. That got old before that was over.
Did you get it down in 4 seconds?
Oh, yeah. We'd been there yet if we hadn't, I guess. And so A and B, they had both lost a lot of men. So they divided battery C and put half of it with A and half with B, and I went over to battery A. Went on through up there with them.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the big battles you were in?
Well, I had credit for 3. Mm-hmm.
Did you fire, what, French 75?
Yeah, I believe that's what they called them. It was a 3-inch gun that had a shell on it. And then part of the time was on 4-inch gun, just a projectile. There was no shell to it. But there's a lot of hard work around the artillery battery. That ammunition comes up there, it's all muddy and dirty, and you have to clean it up with a wire brush and wipe it off, get it oiled up before it's ever used.
Mm-hmm. Were you ever gassed?
I had a little shot of it.
What's the signal for gas attack? What'd they use?
Used just a kind of a dull whistle.
What's that gas like?
Well, it's got an awful good smell to it. You smell it, and you want to smell it again. It smells so good. And that's something you must never do. If you smell it, you hold your breath till you get your gas mask on.
Where did that happen?
Huh?
Was that at the St. Miehl or the Muese?
Well, I don't know. We had it at all the places. Wherever you're liable to get it any time.
You ever go over the top?
No, I never did. I was up there one time, and it scared me to death when they told me I had to go over the top. But they found out I was artilleryman. Me and an old boy tried to get a truck up there. And we had a hill to go over. There's no trees on it. And they give us orders now. When you hit that hill, said get over it just as quick as you can. Well, it was full of shell holes, and the shell holes was full of water. So you couldn't drive through them. You didn't know whether it was a foot deep or 6 foot deep. So you had to dodge all them shell holes. We didn't quite get to the top of the hill until they shot a hole through a radiator. So we had to leave it. And it was getting kind of late. We knew we was closer to the front line. We wasn't back. So we went on up the front line. Stayed up there the rest of that day and that night. And the trench had a, you'd walk along in that trench, they was deeper than your head. But up on the side they had a bench there by that table. You get up on that and look over. See the German trench. You'd see one stick his head up and look out every now and then.
Were the inside walls of the trenches covered, or was it just bare dirt?
No, they was rip-rap with poles. And I don't know how they ever made them as good as they did, and as long as they did.
How far would they go?
Oh, they went for endless miles. I don't know.
Were they straight, or were they zigzagged, or what?
Zigzag, just fast roll all the way. And that was so if a shell busted here, it just hit that one place. It couldn't go this way or that way very far, you see.
What's the worst battle you were in?
Well, I don't hardly know. It was liable to happen to you anytime, anywhere.
How many men does it take to operate a French 75?
Well, ordinarily about 10, 12 men on each gun. Keeping the ammunition in shape, everything. I've seen them 4-inch guns. When you touch one off, it jumps forward and then kicks back. And they just gradually go down because it rained every day. I've seen them down hub deep in them trenches, and that them tailpiece behind, I've seen 6 feet down on the ground.
If you have to move, what do you do?
Well, about the only way you'd pull them out was with a caterpillar. Once in a while, you could pull them out with a truck. You'd pull them out with a caterpillar, and then a truck moved them on up.
How many men were in your unit? You said you were in B or A?
I was in C,
In C.
train, and I was in A up there.
Okay, how many men were in A?
Well, I couldn't tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
When's the first time you saw the Germans?
Well, I saw many German prisoners. I saw many dead Germans. But the only time I ever saw a live German up there was when we was in that trench.
Mm-hmm. Where were you when the armistice was signed?
I was at a little town called Knives. It was shot clear down. There wasn't everywhere there's a house. It was about 2 foot high. They just leveled that town off. We pulled in there that morning. There was a 6-inch French gun out there, and it was set down in at a cement basement. They couldn't move it. They went off and left it there, and they looked it over, and there's a lot of ammunition there with it. So they picked a bunch of us out to go out there and operate that gun in case it's needed. I was one of them. And we sat out there by that gun all morning. I think we fired it 3 times. All morning long. And we had a big old long tall boy. He was from Missouri. His name was Clymer. And we got orders to cease fire. But that didn't mean a thing, 'cause you often got that order in the artillery to cease fire. Maybe next 2 minutes you'd get word to open them up again. So that didn't mean a thing when we got word to cease fire. That old boy come out there and he said, "You know, I believe it's over." He said, "There's not as much shooting going on up on the front as there was." Well, you couldn't hear any artillery. But, we stayed there all that day. And we had some dugouts to sleep in there. And that night, the infantry was ahead of us. Well, they knowed it was over. They was up there throwing up hand grenades, busting every hand grenade they could get, throwing up rockets. We'd try to read their signals, and we couldn't make sense of what they was trying to tell us. Next day, an aviator come over and dropped us a paper. We saw it was over at 11 o'clock the day before. That's when we got word to cease fire.
What'd y'all do then?
Well, that night, I heard something that was the best word I'd ever heard in all my life. Our colonel come to us and said, "Boys, it's over." He said, "We've won the war." He said, "We're going home." He said, "We're going to pray to Christmas Eve in New York." Boy, that was sure sounded good.
What was your colonel's name?
Huh?
What was your colonel's name?
Tobin.
Tobin.
We stayed right there slept in them dugouts full of rats and cooties. 2 weeks. We went out over the battlefield with trucks. Picked up everything we could find. Any ammunition, any clothes, any part of anything, guns or anything else. We picked it up and brought it in there and piled it up. Done that for 2 weeks. And one bug didn't do a thing, only bury dead horses up there. Some of them stinking. It was a pitiful job.
Mm-hmm.
Every move we made then, we thought, well, we're going home. We're on our way right now. But we brought all our old broken trucks, things, what guns we had. Come back to a town called Don Joe. Well, we was there only a day or two. And we left our guns and our trucks there. Well, we knowed we was going home then. We went back to a town called Muese-Argonne. Well, it was the first town we'd been to off of the battlefront. They had everything there. You could buy anything you wanted to drink. They had grocery stores, everything there. That was a pretty nice place. We was there a few days, and then we went back to a town called St. Miehl. Well, it was a pretty good sized town, about like Spop over here, I guess. And we stayed there. Well, we stayed there until the last part of April, anyhow.
Mm-hmm. Were you in the Army of Occupation?
No. No, there's a different outfit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that occupation, they were the ones that gathered up this stuff and took care of things after the war. They was over there long after the war was over, cleaning up and helping out.
So when did you come back to the States?
Well, I don't remember what day we left there. But we was on the water 13 days coming back. So we must have got back sometime in May.
Tell him about the hole torn in the ship, in the bottom of the ship that you were on.
Yeah, that was when we thought we was going home. It took us down to Bordeaux, which was the place where they shipped them out. They put us in a little old boat, just squeezed us in there. Started up the river. Hit another ship. Knocked a big hole in that, and we was on just above the water line. If it had been below, it would have sunk it. But we made it up to a camp they call Cognac. Just an army camp out on the sandbar. No town, no nothing around there. And so there was a bunch what they call casuals. Just a bunch of wooden soldiers they couldn't do nothing with, and they just had them out there to work them when they could and things. And they said they'd been there 6 months. Said, you all be here about 6 months. Said, a bunch we'd relieved had been here 6 months. So I said, you won't get away for about 6 months. This ship was sitting out there in the bay, in the river. And we were only there 3 or 4 days. 10 o'clock one night, bugle called to arms. We fell out. The lit light and the colonel was there. He said, boys, we're going home. He said, we're going to get that ship sitting right out there. We're going home tomorrow. Well, it made them guys mad. We come almost having an awful fight over it. So the bugle called again. He told us to not pay any attention to them. I mean, he cussed them guys everything he could think of. Said, you're not even soldiers. Everything else. He said, now we've got a lot of work to do. So he said, just let them holler all they want to. He said, go ahead and do what you do. We worked all night, getting all the hobnails out of her shoes, getting a shave and a haircut, and her shoes shined.
Getting the hobnails out of your shoes.
Yeah. I had to pull all them out.
How come?
I don't know. They didn't want them on the ship that way. Had to wash all the clothes, everything. And 11 o'clock, we started out to get on that ship. We worked from about 10 o'clock that night. They're up 11 o'clock the next day, getting everything done and get ready.
What was the name of the ship?
Well, it's called Untitled. It was an American ship, American sailors, good grub. It had been used before the war for a banana ship. It hauled bananas in South America to New York. That's what it had been used for, but they had made it in this ship. And their job was they put out mines in the ocean. And they was out there 4 months before the war was over, setting mines. And then they was 4 months picking them up after the war was over. They was 8 months on the water without ever getting land. But I never kept, you never cared what dates was, what day of the week it was, nothing.
Where'd you arrive in the States? What port?
At New York.
What was your first impression when you saw the Statue of Liberty?
Well, I don't remember. I remember the first time I saw land. I thought more of it than I did the Statue of Liberty. Got up one morning. On that ship, there was a place about that long, about that wide. There was red marks in there that was tricks across the ocean. The one we was following was wider than any of the rest. And every few minutes, something put a little dot on that line where we was. Took 13 days to fill that line out. It was slow work. We got up one morning and I asked the sailor, I said, you suppose we'll see land today? Why, he said, you can see land quick as the sun comes up. He said, we saw New York at 12 o'clock last night. He told me, now you get right here and you look right out that way. He said, when the sun comes up, you can see land. Well, it looked like something about like your finger out there. It was brown or yellow color. But you could tell it never moved. Anytime you looked, it was still there. So you knew that was land. And, so it just gradually got bigger and bigger and bigger, and finally it got green, trees and things, you could see it. We pulled on in there and we started up the river. I guess it was the river. I think it was the Hudson. Everything was quiet, nothing going on. Pulled up there and the ship stopped and they raised the yellow flag. And boy, we all like to have passed out. Because when we had that quarantine at San Francisco, they waved a yellow flag over us all the time. We knowed we was quarantined again. Well, some said there'll be a month and this and that. You hear all kinds of them hooting and hollering different things. It looked like an army camp over there on the side. There was a yacht come out of there, and some army officers come over there. They got off and run through the ship, looked everything over, and took 2 or 3 off on stretchers, put them on that yacht. Got in that yacht, pulled the yellow flag down, we started on up the river. And every little old fishing boat and everything on that river was saluting us. And the salute is 3 longs. And every ship on there saluting, we never stopped blowing our whistle. It was just a steady blow. 2 yachts come out. Each one of them had a band on them. They come out, circled around, pulled right up the side of our ship. They throwed us all kinds of fruit, morning papers, chewing gum, everything else off of them yachts. Why, you couldn't hear yourself think there's so many whistles blowing. Couldn't even hear what the bands were playing.
Where'd you get off the boat?
Huh?
Where'd you get off the boat?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
All I know, we got off.
Was there a big crowd to meet you?
Yeah, we was there quite a while, hour or 2. And then we must have walked for 4 miles on flowers. Every kind of flower that grows. And just big wreaths of flowers, one side of the street to the other, all the way. Men, women, and children standing along there, and they had all kinds of pies, cakes, cookies, and everything you could think of trying to give us. Well, we still had our pack, our rifle, and we had a big cake or something here with our rifle holding in that on. We just held the other out as we walked by and let everybody hit it. You never shook hands with nobody, they just hit your hand as we walked by. And that went on for 4 miles. Yeah, it seemed like 4 miles. May not have been that long. We went back to Camp Miehl, where we went from, where we had left from.
Did you have a big victory parade?
Huh?
Did you have a victory parade when you got back?
No. No, we never had another parade. Now, when I enlisted, I went to Jefferson Barracks, St. Louis. On the 3rd Liberty Loan, we made a parade in St. Louis. Then when we was in San Francisco, every holiday come up, we paraded all day long. It was no holiday for us. Get up in the morning, shine your shoes, get your uniform pressed, and you, everything, get ready, and walk over there. Walk about 4 or 5 miles and parade, and then walk back. By the time you got back, you were so tired you couldn't go to town, nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
It was no holiday for us.
What kind of rifle did you have?
Well, we had a 75 something. I forget what it was called now.
Did you have a Springfield 03 or a Craig Jordan?
It was a Springfield rifle. Springfield 75. It didn't say a 75. I forget what it was now.
Mm-hmm. Was it a bolt action?
Yeah. Held 6 shells. Had a clip on there. It held 5. You put one in the barrel. Made 6.
Mm-hmm.
You could shoot it 6 times without reloading.
What was your serial number on your weapon?
I couldn't tell. I don't even know what was on it. I don't even know what it was on my dog tag.
Mm-hmm. You still have your uniform?
No, heck no. I pulled that off 2 or 3 days after I got home. I never put it back on.
You were discharged in New York?
No, I was discharged at Hot Springs, Arkansas. They busted us up. They sent them all different directions. Nearest route to their home.
Mm-hmm.
The bunch I was with was discharged at Little Rock, Arkansas. Camp Miehl.
Ever meet any of the guys that were in Siberia, Vladivostok?
No, not that I know.
You know, they had sent some guys up there in 1917, 1918. Did you come back to Tulsa
Yeah,
after the war?
yeah.
Do you have any memories of the race riot
In Tulsa?
here in Tulsa?
Oh yeah, we was here. No, we was up Barnesdale.
Did you hear any stories about it?
Well, not many. I know that some niggers come through up there and they made them go on. They wouldn't let them stop in that town.
What, Barnesville?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Big Heart then. Now it's called Barnesdale.
All day that day, of course, we didn't have radios or anything then, you see. And all day we could see smoke funny looking back towards Tulsa. See, Barnesdale was 50 miles. And later that evening, we was out on lease, and someone went in, got a paper, and heard about the big riot.
What started that riot?
I forgot, like somebody in an elevator or something. I don't remember quite well. I don't remember details about it.
No, I don't either.
Because we wasn't living here.
We wasn't living here.
Mhm.
Didn't come back until everything straightened up. So we didn't know a whole lot about it. All we know was we talked to some people. It was here and there. Some of them told us different stories.
Mhm.
You know, you could see the cloud. It looked like a cloud over here, and it was smoke. Well, that's the way the battlefront. To me, now when we was taking that gas mac training, the battlefront looked just like a dark cloud. You could just hear a roar just like thunder, and the lightning just flashing. Whole thing just reminds you of a dark cloud, storm cloud coming up in this country. That's the way it looked.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I was up there, the sunshine 3 days. I was up on the front a month and 3 days, and we had 3 days of sunshine while I was there. That's all we had. 30 days of rain.
Mm-hmm. Man, where were you born?
Prior,
Pryor. Who's your father?
what?
Who is your father?
Bill Groden.
And who is your mother?
Catherine Feehan,
How do you spell that?
F-W-E-H-A-N.
What kind of work did your father do?
Well, he worked in stores a lot. In fact, he run some, and he run sawmills 2 different times that I know of. And
He worked in a smelter once, I know. I
Yeah.
heard him talk about it.
at Bartlesville.
Mm-hmm. When did he work up there?
Well, I must have been about 4 years old. And he worked there about a couple of years, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Best I can remember.
You know, one day, one sunshiny day, when we was on the front, we had little old holes dug out about that deep. There's about 3 or 4 of us get down in.
About 3 or 4 feet deep.
Yeah. And there was a German airplane coming right straight towards us. It was just like being in this country, seeing a cyclone coming right towards you, and you had no place to go, only that little old hole to get in. That's the feeling you had there. And it got so close up over us that the slugs from the anti-aircraft guns was falling around us just like hail. We had on helmets that would protect you quite a bit. You wasn't supposed to look up, but you couldn't keep from watching that airplane coming over. One old boy got his little finger broke. He was standing kind of down in his shell hole and had his hand out on a piece of tin, and one of them slugs hit his little finger and broke it. It got so near over us that finally one of them hit so close to him, they rocked him up on his side. Well, as quick as they done that, he knowed that they knowed how high he was and how fast he was flying, and he knowed they was going to get him. He turned, went off the other side, circled around, and we did hear they got him before he got back across the line. Well, now, such as that, you're not really scared, but it's the worry. You're not scared enough, you're not shivering or anything, but there except the machine gun. Every fourth round was the ball of fire, and you could see the exhaust of that plane when he went over. They was holding them balls of fire right on him, and why they couldn't hit him, I don't know. If they ever hit him, we never did know it. He went over, turned around, come right back over us again, turned around, come right back over us again, and about a quarter of a mile up there's a bunch of blackjack bushes. He went up there and he blowed all them things out of the ground. Some of them that big around, he just root walked them. He thought that was us. He couldn't see, you see. It was rainy and bad and dark. And that's the only thing he could see, so he just tore them blackjacks out instead of us.
The first airplane that came over and the slugs were hitting around you, what kind of mission was he on? The German airplane.
Oh, I don't know. They often come across the line.
Mm-hmm.
Ours often went across the line. I had a nephew in World War II, and he crossed over the line. They had to make 50 trips across the line, and then that was all they'd have to make. He made his 50 trips in 100 hours over, crossing the line. He drove one of these 2-engine planes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the name of it was. And his brother, he was driving a P-58, but he went down in the ocean while he was on training. Killed him.
Mm-hmm.
Who was that? Dewey Reese.
Uh-huh.
When did y'all get married?
20.
1920?
February 5th.
Where'd y'all meet?
We met here in West Tulsa.
Yeah, when I was just a kid. I knew him. We come to Tulsa in a covered wagon when we come here.
Mm-hmm. What year did you come to Tulsa?
Well, I was 7 years old, I think. What year would that be, 10?
That'd be about 1910.
Yeah, I believe we come here in 1910.
How come your folks came to Tulsa?
Well, my uncle, we was living in Bartlesville then, and my dad's brother had homesteaded the place out by Woodward, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Well, boy, I'm telling you, it just wasn't, you couldn't grow nothing, so we just stayed out there. Well, we went out in the fall, and then we come back the next fall. We didn't stay out there quite a year.
They were living there on the 1910 census
Okay.
in Woodward County.
So you came back to Tulsa in the covered wagon?
Yeah.
What was the trip like in the covered wagon?
It was nice.
It was
I went from Apache to New Mexico in one, come back in one. It wasn't bad.
Oh, well,
Camped out all the way.
It's fun for kids, you know. I know it wouldn't be very fun for parents. I wouldn't think it would. But we kids had a good enough time. We didn't know responsibility, you know.
When did you move to Bartlesville?
Well, I can't remember moving there. I must have went there about when I was about 3 years old or something. I just don't-
That's when your father worked in smelters?
Yeah.
Then you left there, you say about 1910?
No, we left. We moved up there about 9 because I think it was 1910 when we moved on here.
Okay.
We didn't stay out there quite a year.
Yeah.
see.
Do you remember Statehood Day?
No,
Mm-hmm.
I'd just been 4 years old. and
Yeah,
I
that's right, that's right.
don't remember anything about it.
When did y'all move to Barnesdall?
Oh,
Is that when after you were married?
yeah, about 20, 21, I think.
Mm-hmm. What'd you do up there?
He
I
pumped
was a
on
pumper for the
Sinclair.
Sinclair Oil Company. You know, when I come back, I went down to Apache after the war. I come to Tulsa first, and then I went there down to Apache. I stayed down there about 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Come back, and I was working for the Cotton Refinery when I left. And I was filterman there, getting $96 a month. When I went in the Army, I got $22 a month. And so when I come back from Apache, I went over there to get my job back. No, you ought to come back the day you got out of the Army. That's the day you was supposed to come back. They wouldn't give me my job back. I went down to Texas Company and got a job. I worked down there for a while, quit. That's when we went to Bartlesville. I went to pumping. We was 3 years in New Mexico. They didn't stay in western Oklahoma like we did in Mexico. We stuck it out 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school out there. There was me and one more white boy, and 2 of my sisters. It was the only white kids there was in the whole school. It was all Mexican.
What part of New Mexico? Oh, you told me. That's right, that's right. I'm sorry.
I don't know what county it was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was a Mexican boy, had a little old burr. He drove there to town. We call them Jennies. They call them Bull. That thing is all right to drive around, but that was the roughest riding thing you ever tried to ride. We used to ride it every day. Get on it, get throwed off maybe 2 or 3 times. Finally throwed that Mexican boy and killed him.
Do either one of you remember any stories your grandparents told when they were kids?
I never was around my grandparents.
Me neither.
Were either one of your grandfathers in the Civil War?
I don't think
No, not that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
I know my grandfather died when we was in Kentucky.
so. I don't know how
He
old
was
they
at our
was.
house when he died.
Just
How
at your
old
house?
Was when he come from Ireland.
Her grandparents, 3 of them were born in Ireland.
Okay.
The other one was born not long after they came from Ireland. So she's full-blood Irish.
My grandparents all lived in Highway,
Mm-hmm.
and then I don't know how come them to come to Oklahoma. They just wanted to leave there 'cause it was so cold, and I guess, and so communication wasn't very good in them days. So
think what else. Oh, the Depression of the 1930s. Where were you all at?
We lived right up here, just off of
Just
Union.
right up here on this hill.
Mm-hmm.
Just off of Union up
Yeah.
on 61st.
What kind of work were you doing then?
I was working at Texaco refinery.
Did,
I worked every day through
I say, did the Depression affect you all much?
Well, we got by pretty good. We had our family, and we had our, well, her father never was with her. I had my father and mother to take care of, or help, and had her mother a lot of the time. And we had all our kids, but we managed to live, got by all right just on what I was making.
Well, we lived out and we had garden and hogs and chickens and
Cows.
made garden, you know.
Mhm.
So we got by better than a lot. Never did have to go to soup line anyway.
She had some sister though that was, he did too, that both of them were real destitute during the Depression.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They had 14 kids, wasn't it?
Well, I went buying selling cattle. I knowed how to handle cattle pretty good because I'd worked on a cow ranch down home. That's what I was doing when I come to Tulsa. I'd worked there 3 years
Well, that's
on
after
a
we
cow ranch.
moved down here.
Boy, that's the roughest work in the world. And I didn't know cattle pretty good, so I'd buy and sell cattle.
What kind of cattle were you raising?
Here,
Mhm.
anything I could buy that I'd make money off of. Made no difference what it was.
Just mixed breeds in?
Yeah. There's 3 things you got to know about buying cattle. You've got to know about how much it will weigh.
David, would you like
And
to have
you've
a
got
bowl of
to know
vegetable soup?
If it
Maybe.
looks healthy.
You're gonna,
And you've got to know what grade they'll put it in at the stockyard
Yeah.
and what that grade is paying.
Mhm.
Well, where you buy and selling all the time, you can look at one and tell just about what it'll weigh. And you'll know what grade they're going to put it in at the stockyard. So you'll know how much it's going to bring you when you get it out there. It's a pretty big job, but I had another 80 rented right back of it there, and I could run a pretty good budget.
Well, I think we have a good interview.
Well, now just what does that do?
What we do